Hello chess friends and welcome to your Art of Chess channel and welcome to an incredible game of the Computer Rapid Chess Championship in 2022. We have here the two top engines, Stockfish 15 and the Dragon engine, battling it out in one of my favorite openings in the so-called Ragozin Defense of the Queen's Gambit Decline. And the Ragozin Defense is really wild dynamic openings. First, Black is hitting the center with the move d5, plays aggressive in the center of the board, then also plays this bishop to b4 move, which is really annoying to handle because you're creating the spin against the knight on c3. So I think we can agree that it's a dynamic approach in the beginning. But what Stockfish will do here is really wild, because the Stockfish will break here, I think, many principles in chess that I know, because Stockfish will stay in this dynamic game with the king in the center through the whole game, which is really, really wild, which is really remarkable. Many of us, I think, wouldn't dare to play the game like this. Many of us, I think, would be scared to stay for such a long time with the king in the center. But Stockfish is, of course, the best engine in the world, plays really different ideas, different chess sort of. So in my opinion, really, really wild game. In my opinion, really one of the best games that I've seen in my life. So let's see now the game. Stockfish 15 against Dragon in the beautiful Ragozin Defense in the so-called Alekhine Variation. So here the fish played the move d4. Knight to f6 was played by Dragon. Knight to f3, d5, c4, e6. The Queen's Gambit declined, and now we have knight to c3, the three knight variation. So bishop to b4. Now it becomes, of course, the Ragozin Defense. We have the pin here, we have the tension in the center of the board. So as I said, I think we can agree this is at least a dynamic approach here of Black's. Many times Black is playing more solid structures with the move bishop to e7, going into classical systems. But now, as we said, bishop to b4, we have now queen to a4. This is now the so-called Alekhine variation. It forces now Black to play the move knight to c6 to protect the bishop on b4, and now with the move a3, here Stockfish kicks away the bishop again to e7. So we have bishop to f4. Very important to get with the bishop out, because if you play e3, which would be also playable here for white, then of course the bishop is a little bit stuck by its own pawn structure, so it's really blocked out. So that's why first Stockfish gets with the bishop out and wants to play then afterwards the move e3. Kingside castling e3. Here we have knight to h5. By the Dragon engine. Also bishop to d7 is an opportunity, maybe indirectly attacking the queen, then maybe threatening some ideas of knight to d4. But now Dragon goes for the bishop on f4, is trying now to at least get rid of one of these bishops, because they are very powerful. We can agree that also the dark square bishop is a good piece here. It's attacking this diagonal, also it's very active on this diagonal, but also this light square bishop will be very active on d3. So with such a powerful bishop pair, I think Black could face many tactical problems. So that's why here in the continuation, Dragon at least traps now one bishop. But now Stockfish plays an interesting idea. Bishop to e5, gets the bishop here, hopes now maybe that Black takes, because after knight to e5, if you take for instance this bishop, it would be very, very hard for now for Black to play the game. This wasn't played in the continuation, but I wanted to show what actually happens if you play, for instance, knight to e5. This was your idea in the beginning, but actually this is not working, because d takes e5 will happen, and now the serious threat is g4. g4 is of course trapping the knight. You have to play now ideas of g6 to liberate yourself here, a square for the knight. It's not such a huge problem that you have to reroute the knight maybe to g7, and maybe you can have a good square then afterwards on f5. But now comes a devastating move h4, and this move is creating really great opportunities now for white in the continuation. You will eventually play g4, you will eventually play h5. Now you are maybe trying here counterattacks on queenside, but now look at this, g4, knight to g7, queenside castling, and I think against Stockfish you can even resign the position immediately, because look at this, how aggressively white would go into the game. Bishop to d3, queen to c2, h5, hitting the h7 square I think is crucial here with the support of the rook, the centralized knight. With this d-file attack, notice that also the d-file could be open, then of course the queen is endangered. I think, as I said, you can just resign immediately and forfeit the game. So as I said, really, really wild choice here, bishop to e5. So Black has to be careful, cannot immediately kick away the bishop from this active square. So a6. Now the Dragon engine is again trying to get some kind of activity here on the queen side. We have now queen to c2. Now notice that when the knight is on h5, it's not protecting the weak h7 square. So now g6, we have now h4. Again, Stockfish plays on the same idea. will eventually hit the pawn here to g4, will eventually kick away the knight, and then will again start to push here the pawns on the king side. Notice bishop to d3 is still a good choice, hitting here this long diagonal, because you can never get attacked because you have already played the move a3. It creates now at least some kind of defense against this annoying and potential move knight to b4. So really great attacking formation already here by Stockfish 15. So we have now d takes c4, g4, attacking the knight, knight to f6, and now bishop to c4. And this move makes really sense because there is now one tactical problem here for black. Black could of course take out now the pawn on g4, but like the expression says, you cannot have the cake and eat it too, because okay, you maybe are taking now the pawn here on g4, but now you're not protecting anymore the h7 square, so the knight is a little bit overloaded here in the defense of black's position. Now after move knight to g4, as we said, we just continue the pressure with the move h5. You can maybe attack the bishop. Look at this, b5, bishop to d3, but I think this is again not working. We look at this, even if you try here some ideas of b4, maybe to just be active here, we just play this one. Even if you take there even this opportunity to maybe even get checkmated. So I think this position will fall apart. So even if you don't take out the knight, for instance, you take, then we just play this one, bishop to g6, f takes g6, queen to g6, and again it's a messed up position. So these are the tactics that I think we are preparing here from white's perspective. So black needs to be careful. That's now I think the main issue here. So you see, you cannot take out the pawn on the pawn on the g4, because you will get h5 and you get a breakthrough. So at least the knight on f6 is controlling now the h5 square. So we have now b5 here by dragon. We have bishop to f6. Again, Stockfish is getting rid of this key defender of the square h5. If you play, of course, b takes c4, doesn't matter. First we'll hit the bishop here, bishop to e7. It comes with an attack against the queen. You have to react, and now I think this is again a solid game. h5 is working, maybe even queenside casting. Knight to e4 is a good choice, knight to c5, maybe g5, h5. White will find, I think, great opportunities how to attack here black's position. So that's why after bishop to f6, we have bishop to f6, bishop to e2, retreating now with the bishop, bishop to b7, and now a very nice move here by Stockfish 15, knight to e4, attacking the bishop. But not only attacking the bishop, the weak square on c5 I think is now crucial here in black's position. We'll get the knight on c5, we will attack the bishop on b7, and look at this, the knight on c6 could be also endangered. Still, our main plan is working, I think. h5, h takes g6, g5, h5, bishop to d3, maybe again knight to g5. Again, I think many are attacking opportunities, but the main issue, I think, is the weak c5 square now in white's position. So we have rook to c8, h5, again with the same idea, targeting the h7 square. Maybe not immediately we can make something out of this, but if something gets cleared, I think black will not have fun in this particular game. So bishop to g7, now comes this beautiful move, knight to c5, hitting the bishop, bishop to a8, and now rook to d1. A very nice move here by Stockfish, getting the rook again where already the queen is. Although, in my honest opinion, I think queenside castling would be also possible. But notice, if you castle now queenside, this makes perfect sense, because still you have an active rook on the d file, you have a rook, active rook on the h file. But maybe the king on c1 could be in danger, because now black could break the position with the move b4. So you don't want to have your king on the queen side. So that's why really nice choice here by Stockfish. Stockfish stays now with the king in the center. Plays now rook to d1, again with the same idea, to endanger the queen on d8, but at least the king is not on the queen side. Even if you start to push the pawn on b4, we're not casting there into your potential attack. So this is really wild what Stockfish is doing. So after move rook to d1, we have queen to e7, rook to h3, and now Stockfish is trying a different maneuver. Really wild stuff. Stockfish is trying now ideas of king to f1, king to g2, or maybe king to g1, but at least the rook is staying now on this active file on the h file. So Stockfish is not losing any activity, although probably you can still maybe castle, but I think if you castle now kingside, even in this particular position, then you have left too many spaces. So that's why here, as we said, knight to c5, rook to d1, and now rook to h3 with the preparation, king to f1, king to g1. So rook to d8, Stockfish grabs now one pawn. In the continuation, we have rook to d6, now knight to c5, and now b4. Notice what would have happened if you would have castled queenside here. I think black would find at least a way to attack you. Black would maybe even sacrifice some pawns, but now the A file would be open, the B file would be open, maybe in the later stage also the C file. So very, very subtle choice here by Stockfish to stay with the king in the center. So we have now G5. Stockfish continues the pressure. We have now rook to B8 by the drag engine is trying somehow to attack the position on the queen side. If you play E5 here, I was curious what happens if you play E5. Why didn't the drag engine open the position with the move E5? Actually, after move E5, we're just passing through here with the move D5. And now we have to make a reaction, maybe knight to A7. And now with bishop to C4, we are supporting now our very annoying pawn on D5. And still no files are open, so still black doesn't have opportunities to attack the king in the center of the board. The white king can stay a little bit longer now on this weird position on E1. We have to say it's a weird position because I've never seen so often that white is staying in such a dynamic position with the king in the center. So with the move D5, I think we would lock everything and would not allow here black to break the position. So here after move G5, so that's why rook to B8, trying at least to make something out of this position on the queen side. We have now H6, Stockfish continues the pressure, bishop to H8, and now rook to H4. We have B takes A3, B takes A3, and now after queen to E8, rook to G4. Stockfish keeps everything glued together, keeps really everything compact, is still not allowing here ideas of E5 because, as we said, D5 would be then the continuation. So we have queen to E7, and now finally Stockfish moves the king out of the potential attack, king to F1, and now with king to G1. Notice where the rook is here on a weird square, also on G4. This rook is on the D file. The knight is very powerful, I think, on C5, but this is something that I think we don't see so often in chess. Really, really wild stuff here by Stockfish 15. So rook to D8, king to G1, queen to E8, rook to C1. Targeting also here the C6. The knight could be a little bit loose. Also the pawn on C7 is a disadvantage in black's position. We have now E5, finally breaking now in the position, but now with rook to E4, Stockfish secures still a compact center with this beautiful defensive approach, rook to E4. We have a rook to D6 by the drag engine. If you play something like knight to E7, if you're trying maybe to liberate this long diagonal and hit the rook, nothing is working. I think we can even sacrifice the exchange here. Rook to E5, bishop to E5, knight to E5, but notice now, knight to G4, knight to F6 is here destroying here the position. Even if you play something like knight to D5, then I think, look at this, bishop to C4 could happen. We're hitting the knight, still with ideas of to play knight to G4, knight to F6, and notice we have also an annoying passer on the A file. So the knights, I think, that could control the dark squares here are very, very annoying to handle. So maybe you are defending this position on F6 for a little bit, but in the later stage after bishop to C4, as we said, bishop to D5, we're getting rid of the key defender in this position. So in my opinion, not a good position anymore for black. So you see, with the move rook to E4, Stockfish found a beautiful way how to defend again the center of the board. Again, Stockfish didn't allow here the drag engine to open the center and let the position explode. So that's why rook to D6 here by drag. We have now queen to A4, hitting the knight, but also indirectly the queen, because it's, I think, very, very cool if we manage even to trade off now more pieces, because we have gained some material. We have the passer on the A file. Even if the position gets a little bit more simplified, if we slow down the pace, if we manage to maybe trade off the queens, it's a good game here for white. So not a bad move here really by Stockfish 15. So we have now queen to E7, and now again this idea D5, getting again a very nice compact center. The knight has to move, and here in the continuation after rook to D5, Stockfish found this one, knight to A6, simply attacking now here the rook, and there's not a good way anymore to protect this position. You have to play rook to B2, but Stockfish now grabs for this piece on C6. We have now bishop to C6, and after queen to C6, notice also that the rook is hanging. Even if you try some ideas of queen to E2, we'll just grab now this one, and of course white is much better because white would have an extra piece. So this is not working. Let's go back. After move D5, we have seen that this was the problem if you play rook to D5, because then the knight is loose on C6. Even if you play knight to D8 here, let's see this one. If you escape with your knight, then it's not getting better because you get queen to A7. The rook is under fire. You have to move the rook here on C8, but now with bishop to A6, we again win the exchange here. So this defensive approach is also not working here for black. So that's why here after move d5, as we said, rook to d5, but now you get this one. We have here knight to a6 attacking the rook, and here rook to b2 was played. We have rook to c6, and now we get into this tactical sequence where Stockfish is much better. So we have rook to d6, nothing special, because after queen to c4, this is now defendable. Stockfish has a situation where Stockfish is down the exchange, but it doesn't matter. We have still two minor pieces for the rook, and of course very huge tactical problems around the square. f7 maybe in the later stage, the f6 can be weak, and we should not forget really about this passer on the a file, which could create of course a dynamic position on the queen side. So in the continuation, we have now c5, we have king to g2, now finally improving the position of the king. We have now rook to d8, bishop to f1, rook to b1, queen to c5, simplifying the game. Drang is not interested. Drang is trying to make something in this position with its rooks, but it doesn't matter here. Stockfish just improves the piece. Knight to b4, we have rook to c8, queen to d5, queen takes d5, knight to d5. Again, Stockfish is keeping the situation where Stockfish has two minor pieces for the rook and has now the passer and still this control of the f6 square. So king to f8, we have a4, rook to d8, now finally knight to f6. If you play bishop to f6, this wasn't played in the game, but it doesn't get better, because after g takes f6, maybe you're trying this kind of an idea, rook to b6, attacking the pawn on f6. But now look at this, with knight to g5, you couldn't even take out the pawn on f6 because you get the beautiful fork on h7. So this square h7 is a weakness. If you play even king to g8, then bishop to c4 is a huge weakness. So whatever you do, you're getting tactically destroyed here for sure. So really wild stuff. So after knight to f6, here the Dragon Engine tried this one, rook to b6, knight to g4. We have now f6, g takes f6, bishop to f6, attacking now the rook a5. We have rook to b1, and now Stockfish simply grabs another piece. So even if you try here rook to c6 to stay maybe connected to this bishop on f6, now we've just played knight to f6, rook to f6, and again with this idea knight to g5. Maybe again you can protect the position with the move king to g8, but as we said, again this bishop is coming into the game, king to h8, and now with rook to e5, again we just push the pawn further, get this rook behind, maybe even somehow the knight into the game, and I think we'll promote this pawn for sure. In one moment I think black would give up here the rook for the pawn. So that's why it's not working. After move a5, we have rook to b1, but now Stockfish grabs another piece, grabs also this pawn. We have now rook to e5 with a check. Now Stockfish retreats with the knight. We have rook to b7, continue the pressure with the pawn. Now again a new check. Now attacking simply the rook. Again a new check, again a check, and now simply including more pieces into the game. Rook to d5, knight to c6, attacking now the king. We have king to a4, bishop to c4. Watch it till the end, because you see a beautiful attacking motif here still by Stockfish. Here after bishop to c4, rook to g5, knight to g5. We have now rook to c8, a7, here rook to f8, a8 the promotion, and here after queen rook takes a8, now rook to b2. There's not a good protection anymore. You get checkmated in the next move. Whatever you do, king to a3, here with this move, rook to a2. Drang lost the game because of this beautiful checkmate, because the knight is of course controlling the beautiful b4 square. Really nice checkmate pattern with the knight, with the bishop, and with the rook. So incredible game, how Stockfish kept the king in the center of the board for a long time. Really wild stuff. I'm not sure how many of us would play any of these ideas in such a dynamic position, to stay with the king in the center of the board, where the position could have exploded in such a brilliant way. But you see how Stockfish kept really the position in the center compact, never allowed Dragon to open the center, because that's, I think, the main rule of the king in the center position. You can keep the king in the center for a long time, but you have to secure the center of the board. You're not allowing your opponent to make dynamics in that part of the board. So if you make that happen, if your opponent attacks you through the center, then you could get destroyed for sure. So it was really instructive how Stockfish played now this game, although I would never recommend you, of course, to play the game like this, but this was really incredible in a Ragozin Defense game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Ragozin Alekhine variation. If you want to see more about this opening, we have created this mini series about the Ragozin Defense. Here's the link of our series. You can check it out if you want to have a deeper preparation of this beautiful opening. And if you want to see more Stockfish games, check out our comment the chess games played by computers here. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what you say, chess is the best, of course.